Maybe you faced tough setbacks recently that made you question whether you were on the right path. I've learned that failure is a powerful teacher. Some of the biggest breakthroughs that I've ever had in business and in life came directly from those moments that didn't go as planned.
Anthony A. Luna is the CEO of Coastline Equity Property Management, based in Southern California. As a respected Forbes and Fast Company contributor, Anthony shares insights that help property management professionals excel while giving back to their communities. His upcoming book, Property Management Excellence, will be available in June 2025 on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and bookstores worldwide.
The information provided in this podcast is for educational purposes only and does not constitute legal, financial, or investment advice. Always consult with a qualified professional before making any investment decisions. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Owner Mindset Podcast. I'm Anthony A. Luna, and today we're going to be diving into something that I think we can all relate to, and that's failure. Now I know that the word failure can stir up a lot of emotions. Maybe you faced tough setbacks recently. Or maybe you've gone through something in the past that made you question whether you were on the right path. I've been there too, and I want to kick things off by sharing a little bit more about my own journey, because like many of you, I've learned that failure is a powerful teacher. In fact, some of the biggest breakthroughs that I've ever had in business and in life came directly from those moments that didn't go as planned. It wasn't always easy to see it that way. Early in my career, when I faced setbacks, I took it hard. It felt like a personal reflection of my abilities. But over time, I realized that those tough moments weren't there to stop me. They were there to help me grow. And the sooner that I embraced that, the faster I was able to turn those failures into real opportunities for success. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. How adopting a growth mindset can transform the way that you approach failure and ultimately help you thrive in business and in life. There's this common misconception, or maybe I was the only one who didn't realize that success is not a straight line. In my mind, you set your goals, you work hard, and everything just falls into place. But along the way, and in my experience, that's not always how it's been. Success is messy, and it's full of detours, roadblocks, and yes, lots of failures. But here's the thing, those setbacks aren't dead ends. They're just part of the journey. I remember one of my first renovation projects that I took on. I had everything lined up. Financing was in place, we had a great contractor, our team was solid. In my mind, everything was lined up for success. But within a few months, everything started to go sideways. The budget was ballooning, there were construction delays, material delays, and it seemed like everything was going wrong. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. At the time, it felt like the end of the world. I started doubting my decisions and wondering if I was cut out for this industry. Looking back, that experience was one of the most valuable I've ever had. Not because it was fun, it definitely wasn't, but because it forced me to adapt. It forced me to look at things differently and to ask the hard questions, to create new processes and to find new ways of solving problems. That failed project taught me more about resilience and leadership than any textbook or any course could have ever showed me. When you find yourself in the middle of a setback, take a breath, step back and ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I be better next time? Because those moments aren't just failures, they're stepping stones to something greater. Here's another example that really shaped my mindset. A few years into my career, I took over management of a property that seemed like a great investment for my client. Everything looked good on paper, but after a few months, we started running into some serious and unexpected structural issues. The costs kept climbing, and I realized we were in way deeper than we anticipated initially. It would have been easy to see that situation as a total failure. And trust me, for a while I did. I remember feeling like I let my team down, my client down, and myself down. But instead of letting it crush me, I leaned into the challenge. I had tough conversations with my team and our client, and we worked through the issues. And ultimately, we developed better inspection processes for the future and established better ways to catch these issues before they ever happen again. That situation forced me to become a better communicator and to be much more proactive when it comes to solving problems. It certainly wasn't a win in the traditional sense, but the lessons that I took from that failure helped set the foundation for future success of our company. I want to talk about something that goes beyond property management, real estate, or business. Let's talk about how a growth mindset can change the way you approach any challenge in life. You don't have to be in real estate to know that life doesn't always go according to plan. Whether you're navigating your career, relationships, personal goals, or even daily struggles, things don't always work out the way that we expect them to. And in those moments, the way you choose to respond makes all the difference. A growth mindset isn't just for people in business. It's for anyone who wants to keep learning, evolving, and finding better ways to handle setbacks. Here's what I mean by that. If you believe that your abilities, your skills, or even your situation are fixed, that things can't change, then every failure or roadblock can feel like a dead end. But if you adopt a growth mindset, you start to see those same challenges as opportunities to improve and to adapt. You stop saying, I can't, and start asking, how can I? I'll give you a personal example. Early in my career, when I ran into problems I didn't know how to solve, I used to think it was a sign that I wasn't cut out for real estate. But over time, I realized that those failures or those missed opportunities weren't always about me. They were just part of the process. I had to shift my thinking from I failed to what can I learn from this? That shift didn't just help me in business, it changed how I approach challenges in every area of my life. And here's the truth. Every time you encounter a setback, whether in your career, your personal life, or even in your health, it's an opportunity to grow. It's not easy to adopt this mindset. It takes practice, but once you start to embrace it, you'll notice a huge difference in how you approach problems. I want you to think about a recent challenge you faced. Maybe it was a personal goal that didn't go as planned, or maybe you're in the middle of it right now. How are you looking at that situation? Are you seeing it as a sign that you've hit a wall? Or are you asking yourself, what can this teach me? How can I use this to help me grow? The reality is, the way that you frame the problem is what's going to determine how you move forward. When you finally adopt a growth mindset, you start to see those setbacks as setups for a comeback. Instead of giving up, you get curious. You ask better questions, and in turn, you find much better solutions. And here's the best part. Anyone can develop a growth mindset. It's not just something you're born with. It's something you cultivate over time. It's about training your brain to see every experience, even the tough ones, as a chance to lean in and evolve. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes to bounce back from those setbacks and keep moving towards your goals. This shift in thinking is so powerful, not just in business, but in life. Whether you're trying to learn a new skill, build stronger relationships, or just navigate the day-to-day challenges of life, a growth mindset allows you to approach everything with a sense of possibility. I remember a tenant situation I dealt with a few years back. This tenant was consistently behind on rent. No matter how many times we tried to work out payment plans or offer support, the initial reaction was to let my team know we needed to begin the eviction process. It felt like the only logical next step at that time. But something told me to slow down and take a closer look. What I realized was the real problem wasn't just the tenant being unable to pay. It was our communication. At the time, we didn't have the right systems in place to catch issues before they got out of hand, and this was one of them. We weren't reaching out to the tenant early enough to discuss the delinquency or possible payment plans before things escalated and ballooned to a point that this tenant couldn't pay any longer. That situation taught me that sometimes the failure is in our processes, not just in the people involved. From that moment on, we've implemented new communication protocols that helped us catch problems earlier and offer solutions before things got worse. It wasn't an easy situation. It was certainly tough. It was tough for the tenant, it was tough for our client, and it wasn't easy on our team either. And it's something that I'm grateful for today because it forced us to grow and improve. Now, whether you're working in property management, building a business of your own, or just looking for ways to improve how you handle life's challenges, I've packed a lot of these lessons into our property management course we're offering. But don't worry, this mindset shift applies far beyond just real estate. We'll be diving into how you can apply these principles in any area where you want to grow. I'll share more about that with you later. But for now, think about the last challenge you faced and how having a growth mindset could have changed how you handled it. We've talked a lot about how failure can be a powerful teacher and how adopting a growth mindset can change the way you approach challenges. But let's get practical for a moment. How do you take these lessons and actually apply them to your day-to-day life? Whether that's in business, at work, or even in your personal relationships. So here's the thing I've learned. Growth isn't about making these massive leaps overnight. It's about taking small, consistent steps towards improvement. And more importantly, it's about building systems that can help you learn from your mistakes and make better decisions the next time around. So let's break this down. Create a feedback loop for yourself. The first step to applying a growth mindset is to create a system for reflecting on your experiences. Whether you're running a business or just managing your own goals, you need a way to process what's working and what's not. I've found that one of the most valuable habits you can build is taking time to sit down and look at what went well and what didn't. Ask yourself, what challenges did I face this week and what could I have done differently? What can I learn from these mistakes or these failures? This reflection doesn't need to be a formal process. It can be as simple as journaling your thoughts or having a candid conversation with a mentor or colleague. For me, I like to do it in my journal once a week. What matters is that you're actively looking for ways to learn from your experiences instead of just moving on from one to another. It's about turning every experience into a learning opportunity, which is something anyone can do, no matter where they are in their life. Number 2 is embrace continuous improvement. The second step is to get comfortable with that idea that growth is never finished. Whether you're managing properties, leading a team, or working on personal goals, there's always room to improve. Take the time to identify areas where you can tweak your processes. For me, one of the biggest game changers was learning to streamline operations in my property management business. I realized that a lot of the stress and challenges we faced were because we didn't have the right systems in place. But this idea applies to more than just business. It's about looking at your own life and asking, how can I make things run more smoothly? Maybe that means setting up better routines in your personal life, finding tools that can help you stay organized, or simply asking for help in areas where you're struggling. Continuous improvement doesn't have to mean reinventing the wheel. It's about making small adjustments that lead to big results over time. Number 3 is surround yourself with the right people. Another key part of applying these lessons is surrounding yourself with people who push you to grow. This has been a huge one for me. The people you spend time with have a massive impact on how you see the world and how you approach those challenges. I've been fortunate to have mentors and colleagues and friends who challenge me to think differently and push me to keep learning. They don't let me get comfortable with the status quo. And that's been the key in helping me develop a growth mindset. So who are the people in your life who help you see the failures as opportunity? Who pushes you to be better? And if you don't have those people around you, it might be time to look for them. Go ahead and start seeking them out, whether it's through networking, joining a community, or even just listening to podcasts like this one today that encourage you to keep growing. One of the best ways to accelerate your own growth is by learning from the experiences of others, something we call experience sharing. We often talk about learning from our own failures, but what about the wisdom we can gain from watching others handle their setbacks and even their successes? There's a lot to be said for learning from your own mistakes. What if you can shortcut that process by understanding someone else's journey? Why wouldn't you? I've been incredibly fortunate to have mentors and peers and people like my entrepreneurs group, EO Los Angeles, that are able to share those experiences with me and share their challenges and failures. These aren't just people who gloss over those tough times. They're honest about the mistakes they've made and how they've recovered along the way. And I can tell you, some of the best lessons I've ever learned have come from watching other people navigate their own struggles. One of my earliest mentors in real estate was someone who had been in the game for decades. It was George Mayer, our founder here at Coastline Equity, who's since retired. He had seen the highs and lows, and he'd been through recessions, market crashes, failed projects, you name it. I remember one of the meetings we had, and I wanted to ask him about some of his biggest wins. But instead, he told me about the worst deal he ever made. He shared how he got caught up in the excitement of a hot market and rushed into a deal without doing proper due diligence. In the end, the deal fell apart, and he lost a significant amount of money. That was a turning point for him. He realized that no matter how good the market looked, if you skip over the fundamentals like due diligence and research and being thorough, you set yourself up for failure. That story stuck with me. And when I found myself in a similar situation early in my career, I knew exactly what to do because I had learned from his experience. I took my time, I did the due diligence, I was as conservative as possible with my underwriting, and I avoided costly mistakes. Another lesson I've learned along the way from mentors and from colleagues alike is that success leaves clues, but so does failure. It's easy to look at successful people and think that they've had an easy path. But when you dig deeper, you often find that their success came on the heels of a whole lot of failure. Every successful person I've ever met and admired has a story of a time they fell short. But what separates them from others is how they responded. Look at some of the top names in business or entrepreneurship, whether you like them or not. People like Elon Musk, Oprah Winfrey, or even Michael Jordan. Their success stories are well known, but their failures are just as important, and often they're as loud as the wins. Let's go back to Elon for a second. Musk has had multiple failed rocket launches before SpaceX ever succeeded.
Icing on the cake.
Oprah was fired from her first TV job.
Yeah, I got fired.
Because her producers said she wasn't fit for television. And Michael Jordan famously said, "I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. And I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot 26 times and missed. I failed over and over again in my life. And that's why I succeed." So I want to challenge you to go out and seek out stories of failure. It's easy to admire someone's success, but don't stop there. Look for the failures that pave the way for their accomplishments. What did they learn from those setbacks, and how did they bounce back? If you have a mentor or someone you admire, don't hesitate to ask them about their toughest moments. It's often in those conversations that you'll find the most valuable insights. Pay attention to how successful people handle failure, but also study their strategies for success. You can replicate those strategies that work while avoiding the mistakes they've made along the way. By learning from others, you can take their hard-earned lessons and apply them to your own life and business. And trust me, it can save you from a lot of unnecessary headaches. One of the most overlooked aspects of success, in my experience, is resilience. It's the ability to get back up when you've been knocked down, to keep moving forward even when things aren't going your way. This goes hand in hand with having a growth mindset, but it's also about building mental toughness and the emotional strength it takes to keep going. For those of our listeners that are in real estate, I'm sure you can relate to this. I've faced deals that have fallen through at the last minute, properties that ended up being money pits, and challenges that seemed insurmountable. But the difference between success and failure often comes down to how well you can endure those hard times without letting them break you. There was a deal I was working on a few years back, and everything seemed to be falling apart at once. Financing was delayed, the seller was getting cold feet, and every day it felt like something new was going wrong. At that moment, it would have been easy just to walk away and say, this wasn't worth it, or this isn't worth it. But what I realized is that resilience isn't just about toughing it out. It's about staying clear-headed and patient when things are uncertain. In this case, we took a step back. We reevaluated the deal, we renegotiated some of the terms, and eventually got it back on track. It didn't happen overnight and it wasn't easy, but the ability to stay resilient and not let frustration dictate our decisions made all the difference. Mental toughness isn't something you're born with. It's something you have to build over time. It's a muscle you'll have to stretch. And one thing that's helped me tremendously is focusing on what's in my control. In any tough situation, there are always things outside of your control. Other people's decisions, market conditions, unexpected obstacles that you can't stop. But the one thing that you can always control is your attitude and the way that you respond. Focus on what you can control. In those difficult times, don't waste your energy on what you can't change. Focus on your actions, your mindset, and how you choose to respond to those challenges. I want to ask you to take that long view. Resilience isn't just about surviving tough situations. It's about developing the mental toughness to handle setbacks throughout your life. Keep your eyes on that bigger picture, on that larger goal, even when things look bleak in that moment. When you feel overwhelmed, take a step back. It's easy to let stress cloud your judgment. Developing that ability to pause, breathe, and think clearly is a game changer, especially in those high pressure situations. Let's wrap up with something that's deceptively simple, but incredibly powerful. The compound effect of small, consistent changes. Too often, we think that the real growth comes from making huge, sweeping changes all at once. But in my experience, it's those small, incremental improvements made consistently over time that lead to the biggest transformation. There's a principle called compound effect, which means that small actions repeated over time create exponential growth. It's like the difference between saving a little bit of money every day versus expecting a windfall from a lottery ticket. One is sustainable and builds over time, while the other is completely unreliable and based on chance. When I first started managing properties, I was overwhelmed by the sheer number of things that needed to be done. Every day felt like putting out fires, one problem after another. So instead of trying to overhaul everything at once, I started looking for small changes I could make. As an example, I noticed that our tenant communication was often reactive. We'd only hear from tenants when there was a problem. So we implemented a simple change: regular, proactive check-ins with our tenants through surveys and emails. It didn't seem like a big deal at the time, but over the course of a few months, we started seeing better relationships with our tenants and ultimately fewer vacancies. That small, consistent action made a big difference in how smoothly everything ran. This idea applies to any area of your life, whether it's business, personal health, or even relationships. It's the little things that you do every day that adds up over time. Want to become a better leader? Start by reading for 15 minutes every morning. Want to improve your health? Take a 10-minute walk every morning. These small actions don't feel transformative in the moment, but compounded over weeks, months, and years, they lead to massive growth. So focus on consistency over perfection. Don't get caught up in making massive changes overnight. Instead, focus on small, manageable steps that you can do consistently. When you make small, consistent changes, it can be easy to lose sight of the progress or the original goal. Keep track of your efforts, whether that's through journaling, tracking data, or just reflecting on how far you've come over time. The compound effect doesn't happen instantly. It takes time, but the results are lasting. Keep making those small changes, and over time, you'll be amazed at how much you've grown. Remember, big wins are built on small habits. It's those daily, consistent actions that set the foundation for long-term success. And as we wrap up today, I want to leave you with a few thoughts. Throughout this episode, we've talked about failure, about growth, and certainly about resilience, and about how small, consistent actions can lead to massive results over time. And if there's one thing that I hope that you take away from this conversation, it's that failure is not the end. It's just part of the journey. The setbacks you face, whether in your business, your relationships, or even within yourself, are opportunities for growth. But it's up to you to decide how you're going to respond. Remember, developing a growth mindset isn't something that happens overnight. It takes practice, it takes self-reflection, and it takes the willingness to see challenges as stepping stones instead of roadblocks. And the good news is, anyone can do this. It's not hard. You don't need to be in real estate. You don't need to be running your own business to be able to apply these principles. This is about how you approach your own life, how you choose to grow from the lessons that life throws at you. So here's my challenge to you. Think about the last failure you experienced. How did you handle it? And more importantly, what did you learn from it? If you haven't taken the time to reflect on that yet, I encourage you to do so right now. Pause the video. Start by building that feedback loop for yourself, because that's where real growth happens. If you're looking for more ways to put these ideas into practice, don't forget to check out the property management course that I mentioned earlier. Whether you're in property management or another field in the real estate sector, the tools, the frameworks, and the lessons in that course can help you implement these growth strategies in your own life and your own business. It's all about turning challenges into opportunities and finding ways to keep improving, one small step at a time. And if you're ready to take the next step, visit our website to sign up for free webinars and get access to all the additional resources. I'd love to hear your thoughts too. What challenges have you faced, and how have you used those moments to grow? Share your stories with me on social media by using the hashtag #TheOwnerMindset, or feel free to send them to me directly here in the comment section. Thank you for joining me on this episode of The Owner Mindset. I truly appreciate each and every one of you who tuned in, who shared your thoughts, and who are committed to growing with me. As always, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who you think needs to hear it. I'm Anthony A. Luna, and I'll see you next time on The Owner Mindset.